Please remain standing as we center our hearts and minds together for this time. O source of life and learning, here we are today to honor a journey of significance, a work of art, really, cultivated through careful eye for the field, from nose to horizon, persistent patience in the process of development, with the discipline of framing for focus and collaboration for community. We gather around stories and tributes to celebrate how these qualities so lived are examples for all of us, whatever our roles. A timeless gift of call and vision. In this moment, may we see through lives and lenses of wonder and awe as we lean into the power of resilient hope and promise. In the name of all that is holy, life-giving, and true, amen. Please be seated.
Good morning. Welcome to all the faculty, staff, students, and distinguished guests in the audience. Thank you for joining us here today on this special occasion. And congratulations to Maxine Payne on her installation as the Willis H. Holmes Distinguished Professor of Art. Receiving a distinguished professorship is quite an accomplishment. The honor is even more significant when it's bestowed by a college and in a community that celebrates exceptional teaching as part of its institutional identity. Being named alongside our current distinguished professors and their predecessors is to be part of the legacy of teachers and scholars who have challenged and inspired generations of students at Hendrix College. When students encounter professors who are motivated to pursue excellence in teaching by a love of their discipline, it is a transformational experience. When that love and concern extends beyond the classroom to create lifelong bonds, that's when we change the world. And world-changing work is what we are all about here. Thank you, Maxine, for the many ways you've touched the lives of our students, leading them down paths of self-discovery and enriching their lives well beyond their time at Hendrix. Today is a special occasion. Installing a new distinguished professor is not an annual event or a seasonal campus tradition or a semester milestone. It is an honor reserved for the very best from among peers who excel in their dedication to students. Congratulations again, Maxine. Thank you for your example, your inspiration, and your commitment to the character and qualities that make Hendrix College distinct.
It is my great honor to introduce Maxine Payne, who we are celebrating today with this distinguished professorship. Professor Payne joined the Hendrix faculty in 2002 after starting the photography program at the University of Central Arkansas, where she taught for 5 years. She received her Master of Arts and her Master of Fine Arts from the University of Iowa, where she was an Iowa Arts Fellow. This prestigious fellowship is awarded to the most talented artists in the MFA program at the university. Maxine was selected as a fellow of the American Photography Institute National Graduate Seminar at the Tisch School of the Arts at the New York University. This institute aimed to foster artistic growth and professional development for photographers, with its core mission centered on providing a platform for creative exploration, mentorship, and collaboration among emerging and established photographers, with an emphasis on impacting future photography, pedagogy, and curricula. While at the Institute, Maxine worked with established artists, including Robert Frank, Allen Ginsberg, Mark Seliger, and Deborah Willis. Additionally, she was selected as one of the first Professional Development Fellows of the College Art Association, an award given to an MFA or PhD candidate having outstanding capabilities and demonstrating distinction in their contribution to art history and the visual arts. Maxine continued her professional engagement with the College Art Association, attending and presenting at annual conferences, serving as a juror for other fellowship awards, and chairing the Professional Practices Committee. Maxine's career is distinguished by the breadth of her collaboration with faculty, students, and other artists, as well as working across artistic media. A member of the Society for Photographic Education since 1995, Maxine has attended multiple conferences with Hendrix College students, served as a professional development career mentor, and presented her creative work, including the collaboration with Professor Ann Goldberg, Rural Women and Globalization. In 2015, the Grammy Award-winning recording company Dust to Digital published a commercial copy of Maxine's artist book, Making Pictures 3 for a Dime, with the companion CD called Arkansas at 78 RPM, Corn Dodgers and Haas Hair Pullers, featuring original recordings made between 1928 and 1937, and including a 32-page booklet with liner notes by the music historian and critic Tony Russell. Bruce Miller of Roots World says, and I quote, "By itself, Corn Dodgers would be a great collection for the old-time freak who doesn't already own the county collections, but together, as it should be with the book, it still takes an out-of-time, almost ethereal quality, but is also given a much-deserved face," end quote. Maxine shared the Isabel Peregrine and the Margaret Barry Hutton Odyssey professorships with author and professor Tyrone Yeager. Their collaborative project with 20 Hendrix College students and alums, called Audiovisual Arkansas Citizen Storytellers, created stories about Arkansans with a focus on work, play, and place. Using a combination of audio and text interviews, photographs, moving images, and illustrations, Maxine, Ty, and their students collaborated to produce multimedia art projects, including but not limited to photographic essays, podcasts, and short films. The subjects of these projects ranged from freed African Americans who settled in the Ozark foothills community of Twin Groves, to a naked naturalist dedicating his life to preserving Arkansas's natural landscape, to a socialist college that thrived in the Ozark Mountains, and a compelling piece about the absurdity of the decaffeinated coffee. Maxine was the first woman in the art department at Hendrix, and throughout her career has worked to elevate the voices and experiences of women. In 2013, she was awarded the Arkansas Committee National Museum of Women in the Arts Fellowship, developed to assist an accomplished woman artist to realize her vision and help to make her career achievements more visible to the art community and the public. Chair of the board of this organization, Barbara Satterfield, said, "Maxine's dedication to her craft, her commitment to completing an expansive project requiring extensive travel, and her professional collegiality with Ann Goldberg demonstrated an excellent example of art practice that affirms the importance of building awareness of and appreciation for the roles of women." The Rural Women and Globalization Project, the collaboration between Maxine and Professor Goldberg that began in 2006, have documented the lives of rural women using oral history and photography in 5 sites: San Luis, Costa Rica, Douglas, Arizona, and Agua Prieta, Sonora on the United States-Mexico border, Bagamoyo, Tanzania, Vinh Linh, Vietnam, and in rural Arkansas. The project is ongoing and has been exhibited in multiple locations, published in professional journals, presented at national conferences, and was the subject of a TEDx talk. She has photographed hundreds of Arkansas historic bridges for the Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department since 2004. Casey Sanders, producer of a documentary that features Maxine's work, said, "Maxine Payne's work photographing Arkansas's historic bridges inspired the Arkansas PBS documentary, Historic Bridges of Arkansas. A wise photography store owner suggested that I see her work, which sparked the idea for the film. Beyond the inspiration, I wanted to include Maxine, her photography, and her voice in the documentary. Through her work, we see these utilitarian structures, beauty, presence, and often mystery illuminated. Through her voice, we understand their place in the community and in people's lives." I myself, every morning when I step onto the second floor of Fawcett, am greeted by these amazing photographs, a reminder to me, a new Arkansan, of the beauty of my new home state. Maxine has continued her curatorial work on 2 historic photographic archives, the Massengill family photographs and the photographs of Ellie Lee Weems, both of which are included in the High Museum of Art's 2023 traveling exhibition and subsequent publication, Photography in the American South Since 1850. To keep going, at Hendrix, she has taught a variety of classes in the art department, as well as the Engaged Citizen and Explorations, served as department chair, campus curator, chair of the Academic Integrity Committee, is a member of APC, and supervised numerous Odyssey projects. She has overseen 2 public art murals, one in Conway and one in Menifee, served on the Faulkner County Humane Society Board, and is a Faulkner County Master Gardener, and recently installed a commemorative native Arkansas garden in honor of Professor Joyce Harden and Stella Kapik. She has committed her personal life and land to restoration, and her property is Audubon Gold certified, Acres for Wildlife certified, and she participates in 2 conservation groups, Quails and Pheasants Forever, and the Natural Resource Conservation Service Program. She has been a beekeeper, a miniature horse handler, a cut flower farmer, has raised peacocks, guineas, chickens, and rescued a pig, coons, possums, snakes, and many feral dogs and cats. Maxine, it is faculty like you that make me proud to be the provost of this college. You help all of us to see what a whole full life and career is possible, not always without struggle and challenges, but with a determination to continue to share your voice. With that, congratulations on earning this high honor.
That was a different order. I've been watching the Democratic National Convention all last week, and I really like the model of taking a full week to praise someone. But unfortunately, I've been asked to keep my remarks to 3 to 5 minutes, and I'll do my best. I first came across Maxine's work as a photographer in my very first semester at Hendrix. We used to have a forum here in which faculty would present their research to each other, and Maxine's might have been the very first one I went to. She showed images of her work, mainly shot in rural Arkansas, along with excerpts of interviews with her subjects. I was completely blown away. I emailed her that same evening to tell her that her images were riveting and that her work was inspiring. I introduced myself as a new faculty member and suggested we could get lunch or a coffee. Strangely, I never got a reply, despite my rapturous praise. I was thrilled to learn in the following semester that we would be traveling together on an exploratory trip to Costa Rica. I eagerly introduced myself at an informational meeting, and I got a blank look, which I now know quite well. I ran into her at Target the day before the trip and said hello, and again, nothing. It was as if she had never seen me before. It was only when she was sitting in the front seat of the van headed into the mountains of San Luis, trying desperately to manage her motion sickness while also using her psychic powers to keep the van from sliding down the steep drop-offs into oblivion, that Maxine finally noticed me. She could hear me behind her, cheerfully talking to her 6-year-old, and though she could not turn her head, psychic powers, I think she began to appreciate me. Now that I think of it, perhaps the key to our friendship has always been some form of terror. We worked together for the first time on that trip and soon expanded our work to become the Rural Women and Globalization Project, which you can see some of in Mills and also in the Dawkins Center. We've traveled together all over the world to photograph rural older women and interview them about their lives. We've always worked with students who were interested in both anthropology and art, and I got to experience firsthand Maxine's excellence as an artist, a mentor, and a human. I also forced her to confront all of her worst fears, mostly in the form of bathrooms, of varying qualities and styles, questionable meals, and car rides. We once spent 11 hours in a Toyota Camry, driving on roads in the wilderness of Tanzania, listening to nonstop Michael Jackson, for example. The work was entertaining, but I want you to know that Maxine is a visual genius. I'm not sure what other word to use. While I focused on what the women we worked with were saying in the interview, Maxine was taking in everything about the visual scene. She knew right where the best light would be. She would tap on my shoulder and say, "Ask her about the basket of 500 quail eggs that's out in the courtyard." Or, "Ask her to take her hair down." And I would watch, amazed, as the hair in question fell past the woman's knees. She pointed things out to me that I never would have noticed, and I'm a pretty good observer. Once, after we hiked to a remote farm in Costa Rica, I heard her say to our students, "If you shoot those calla lilies in a long light, they are just going to glow." Another time, my students told me that she looked at one of their photos in a critique and said, "Why didn't you include the chair in the frame?" About a chair that was not visible in the photograph in a room she had never visited. She doesn't alter or crop her photos when she processes them, and she once told a student in front of me, "If you can't get the shot in one roll, which is only 12 frames for a medium format film, you're not gonna get it." Maxine can see things others don't see. I think it makes her seem a little bit like she has psychic powers. I've mentioned that more than once. Of course, Maxine is more than the work she produces. She's a baby and animal whisperer, coaxing a rooster onto her lap in Vietnam during an entire meal. She's the hardest worker I know. She's funny, and she's the life of any party. I've been immeasurably enriched by our work and friendship, and our students have been as well. Imagine having a professor who really sees you, who can also see through you, and can see the value of your work. Maxine meets everyone without pretension. She's unimpressed with status, wealth, who you know, or even effusive praise of her work. She pulls the best out of our students because she can see it. I'm so gratified today to be part of her recognition as a distinguished professor, a title that I assure you she hates, but one she absolutely deserves. Maxine's vision elevates Hendrix as an institution, and this honor allows the rest of us to see it a bit more clearly.
I don't know if you know this about Maxine, but she's very bossy. For instance, when Ann and I and Maxine were putting apples up in Ann's kitchen, she told us what we could and could not say today. She said, "Be funny and no tears." She probably did the same thing for Ty. Well, here's something you should know about me. I don't respond well to mandates, Maxine Payne. It's not that I don't have loads of funny stories to tell about Maxine, because I do. It's just that most of them involve a lot of beer and dancing to Fleetwood Mac, and they may not be suitable for this audience or relevant maybe to the purpose. I can tell you that her secret talents involve using random kitchen tools as microphones and turning any space into a dance floor. So if you've got Maxine, beer, and meatloaf's paradise by the dashboard light, the party just entered a new level. And Maxine is rivaled only by Jennifer Pesca in the area of meatloaf lyric talent. Also, if you need a rat snake removed from your chicken coop, Maxine's your girl. She's an excellent snake wrangler. But the other secret talents I know about come from having Maxine as a steadfast friend. And the qualities that make her an excellent friend and endeared her to me, it turns out, are the same qualities that make her a really great teacher and artist and mentor. Maxine and I didn't grow up in the same world, but it was the same in how culturally and physically removed it was from the life of academia that we have now. Major decisions were made by, like, the timing of the first and last frost and the rhythm of the seasons. We talked about things like how to snake-proof a chicken coop at night, and things like gardening and putting up for winter, and secondhand clothes were necessities, and luxuries were things like a trip to Walmart for new clothes and a well-formed Jell-O salad. But now we're in this world, and we're making major decisions by the start of the fiscal year. We're expected to discuss things like how to assess critical thinking skills and the value of a liberal arts education, all things that are meaningful and we take seriously, but they're different. Academic regalia, or a wizard outfit, as Carmen called it this morning, which feels so uncomfortable to wear, is a necessity. That's a necessity in grants to take us to travel to countries with students to do amazing work. It is a luxury. So those worlds are just really different, and it's hard to live in both of them. And I think sometimes you feel like you have one foot in one and one foot in the other, and you can't wholly be the person that you want to be in either one of those. And your heart is in both of them. One of the first photos I saw of Maxine's, and it's still my favorite, is an oldie but a goodie, and it's from her Call of the Litter series. The photo is of Maxine, and she's doing something totally normal and natural. She's sitting on the front porch, and she's breastfeeding her daughter, Clementine. It's Maxine's body, and she's got a pair of old work jeans and a nursing bra on. Clementine's head is facing her, and she's kept gently in Maxine's hand. But you can't see Maxine's head because it's a giant white chicken. She writes in this series about feeling out of place. And that's what the point of that series is. So she says feeling out of place at home is a terribly disconcerting condition. And I think that describes really well the challenge of navigating these two worlds, the world that you're from and love, and your heart is there, and then the world that you find yourself in, where your heart is also. One of Maxine's secret talents is managing those two worlds in ways that respect the authenticity of both of them. You've heard already a little bit about her work. She can hold a conversation with a famous and accomplished artist, with a chicken farmer, with my parents who love her, without pretense and with respect. She has a great professional life where she illuminates and respects the everyday lives of everyday people, their sense of place, their resiliency, their connection to the natural world, and she demands that her students acknowledge and respect the same. Maxine is a first-generation student, and she was raised by her grandparents in rural Arkansas, and she has very little memories of her parents because they died when she was just a few years old. And so there's a lot of loss that I think has led to a sort of feeling of maybe ephemerality that cultivated one of Maxine's other most magical secret talents, which is to produce beauty and love and warmth and peace and a sense of home in literally every space that she touches. You know this if you've been in her office, or if you've ever received a card or a note or a gift from her, or if you've seen her chicken coop, which I would describe as a chicken palace, like a chicken Airbnb. It's lovelier, more thoughtfully designed and decorated, and more inviting, and 100% cleaner than anyone's actual home that people live in. It's just how she is. This transformative capacity to recognize and make happen potential in places and in people, coupled with her ability to straddle and acknowledge these two worlds, is what makes her an excellent teacher and mentor, one who cultivates resiliency, and she challenges her students to respect and to create and work. Maxine is a mentor who prepares you for a challenging world and a friend, for a world that Maxine knows is filled with untapped beauty and love and warmth, and one that will surely kick your ass on the way to finding all of those things. Maxine raised her daughter Clementine almost entirely as a single parent, and she raised her in both worlds and in this world in a liberal arts environment. And Clementine's a product of that. She's a fantastic artist in her own right, and she's also an excellent scientist. So she's at the Mayo Clinic, and she's pursuing a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology. I asked Clementine about Maxine's mentoring style, and this is what Clementine said in a letter entitled "See Payne Loves M. Payne." Clementine says, "I was raised with the understanding that hard work and good education are the key to a better life. Not just because a degree opens doors, but because the curiosity and independent thinking needed to earn one are essential to navigate a world that we exist in continually unprecedented times." Clementine says, "Every time I get together with one of her former students, they can't help but articulate how impactful her mentorship was and continues to be in their lives. Being a first-generation student, my mother knows the importance of good mentorship. She's keenly aware of the importance of both words of encouragement and also criticism. She encouraged me and her students to follow our dreams, but she never did us the disservice or the dishonor of downplaying how hard achieving those dreams would be." And she says, "Max, I'm so proud of you." She adds that if you're a student who's had the privilege of taking any of her classes, just know that all of her Spotify playlists are stolen from Maxine. Finally, when I asked Clem what advice she has for Maxine students, she said, "Choose your mentors wisely, because college is just the beginning. You need a mentor who you can call upon during good times and bad, even after graduation. Students, Maxine is a wise choice for a teacher and a mentor, and also a friend. I'm proud and lucky to call her my friend. Congratulations, Maxine."
Well, old friend, you know what they say. There's no kind of party like a platform party. So I've been working with Maxine for the last 4 years on AV Arkansas, as Dr. Garrett mentioned. And it's been one of the highlights of both my academic and my writing career. And despite her inability to suffer fools, unless those fools be hardworking fools or fools of the sort that make you laugh, Maxine practices a radical empathy that allows people to trust her with their stories. Another of her many superpowers is curation. Maxine, of course, is an important photographer whose work is filled with whimsy and embraces the absurd, but she is an equally astute curator of others' work. And as I've been considering what to say in these remarks, Maxine requested that I avoid the sappy. And so my intention was to roast her. Maybe make up a story about how I misread the call for nominations as being for a diminished rather than a distinguished professor. But after reaching out to some of her former students, asking them for comment on their work with Maxine, I decided instead I would channel her curatorial spirit and let their voices do the heavy lifting. I won't attach any names to these testimonials. Some of these folks are in academia. Most of them are in prison. So I'll just refer to them by number. Alum number 1. Maxine pushed me to see the world in new ways, not just her way, and for that I am forever grateful. I felt like an adult who could bring something new to the table, and often we spoke as colleagues aiming to explore ideas, emotions, dynamics, you name it. It was such a gift to be seen in that way, and I don't think that gift was particular to me, but to every student Maxine taught. You know, it's not often that a great artist makes a great teacher. In fact, more often than not, the two are in conflict with one another. And as for being a great artist or a great teacher, I would have to say that in Maxine, I found both. 2. Maxine was the only person at Hendrix who really gave me a chance. When everyone else told me I couldn't do photography because of my visual impairment, Maxine found a way. She has always been one of my biggest supporters and one of the best things I gained while at Hendrix, a lifelong friend. I cannot think of anyone more deserving of this award. 3. I am grateful to get to call Maxine a mentor. Her respect for hard work and integrity stays with me forever. Her endless efforts to remind people of their power is really admirable. Thank you, Maxine, for making my skin thicker and for shaping me into a dirt fairy. Maxine taught me the truest thing I know, that in perfecting your craft, there is no substitution for putting in the work, that you cannot print and frame and hang an excuse on the wall, and that if you dig deep enough beyond all the high concept bullshit, through all those hours spent in your workspace, be you lonely, tired, or stressed, you'll find no sturdier shelter from the chaos of the world. I can't think of a person more deserving of literally any educational award or accolades than Maxine. She has absolutely gone above and beyond the role of a professor and had a profound impact on my life and certainly the lives of many of her students. Maxine has been a wonderful support system for me in so many ways, both professionally and personally. I graduated from Hendrix a decade ago, yikes. And I know that she will still always be there for me if I have a question about a photographic process, a gripe about my colleagues, griping, another superpower, or just need someone to chat with about anything at all. She is the physical embodiment of hard work, perseverance, and badassery, and I am totally honored to call her my professor, mentor, and friend. I once told her that I wanted to be just like her, and she said, "Shut up." So I won't say it again, but know the sentiment still stands. Thanks for everything, Maxine. 6th and final. One of the things that makes Hendrix such a special place is the deep and meaningful relationships students and professors form, relationships that often last far beyond graduation. For me, nothing exemplifies this more than the bond I've formed with Professor Maxine Payne. From the moment I met her in Intro to Photography, Maxine has been a source of unwavering support and encouragement. She not only guided me through the challenges of my academic journey, but also helped me navigate the uncertain and often daunting stage of post-grad life. Maxine's belief in my potential has been a constant source of motivation and empowerment, and she has continued to be a mentor, a cheerleader, and a trusted confidant. I am deeply grateful for the bond we share, and it serves as a reminder of the profound impact that a dedicated and caring professor can have on a student's life. As all of these former students attest, another of Maxine's superpowers is empowering others, allowing them to see the kinds of choices they might make with their lives. If you've seen Maxine's vehicle about campus, you've noticed her vanity plate that reads, "Choice." It's a reference to reproductive freedoms, I'm sure, but I think it also points to Maxine's style of mentorship, leadership, and friendship. We get to decide the things that will bring us joy and how we find fulfillment in our lives. We get to choose what to work on and how to curate our own stories, and, in Maxine's words, how to illuminate and affirm the spirit of everyday people. Congratulations, Maxine.
The faculty of Hendrix are the heart of the institution. Maxine Payne is a role model for all of us in supporting and living the college's motto, unto the whole person.
With the authority given to me by the trustees of Hendrix College, and upon the recommendation of the faculty, and in recognition of your significant and exemplary work as a member of the faculty, I hereby install you, Dr. Maxine Payne, as the Willis H. Holmes Distinguished Professor of Art, with all of the rights and privileges pertaining thereto.
I think not.
Maxine, it's our pleasure to present you with the medal, and we would invite you to make remarks. Thank you.
Apologies for the repeats, since my friends and colleagues wouldn't communicate with me about what they were going to say. I'm just going to, stay on script here because I don't want to improvise. I always get in trouble. So, photographers use the term mind's eye to refer to ways of consciously making images, to imagine in your mind what an image might look like in its final form before you compose it in the camera. When I think of my life, my young mind's eye could not have imagined standing on the stage before you today, being honored in this way, would ever have been part of my own form, part of my own family of experiences. One of my favorite photographers, Emmett Gowan, contemplating the depth of his connection to his Virginia family through photography, said, "It began with a thought about how I would love to see more of the world. I would love to travel deeply and widely. And what is the deepest and widest you can travel? It's to come back to where you already are. And I saw my own circumnavigation of the earth in my mind's eye, and I realized in that moment that nothing would be more dear to me than where I already was. And my own life, all our lives, are such circumnavigations, formed in time from places and people and events, and they give us stories to tell and give us a more full knowledge of where we are. As an artist and teacher, I see the collecting and sharing of stories as one of the primary functions of photography. For a few years in the early 1990s, when I was an undergraduate at UCA, I lived with and took care of Miss Elizabeth Jones at her home at 1238 Front Street. Lisbeth was the widow of the infamous and legendary Senator Guy Mutt Jones, a Hendrix College alum, class of 1932, as were his two sons. Jones was the legislature's most flamboyant orator, known for his partisanship and craftiness. The Arkansas Gazette dubbed him the nosiest, newsiest, and most ferocious, entertaining, and controversial man in the legislature. He had a penchant for eccentricity, often lounging in his office with red cowboy boots propped on his desk. He was barely 5 feet tall. Each day, he bought a dozen red boutonnieres, pinning them on those he favored: senators, Senate employees, the chaplain, or reporters. At the conclusion of legislative sessions, he was known for sticking around to play a rendition of Dixie on his harmonica. Lisbeth owned the Jones Beauty Shop and Conway Beauty School for over 20 years in what's now the site of Jennifer's Antiques and Cross Creek Sandwich Shop. The Jones home was a sprawling, two-story clapboard structure filled with the peculiar charm of neglect. It had wood floors, wood slat walls covered in peeling and painted paper, and a dark kitchen with a low ceiling. The place was a maze of hidden treasures and artifacts, including pints of whiskey and bags of money stashed in corners, under beds, and even in the deep freeze. The upstairs was separate from their living quarters, and it held 3 apartments that were usually let out to students. I lived in one of the 3 upstairs apartments, a dog trot style setup with an open breezeway separating the room where I slept from the room where I ate and bathed. Each of the rooms was a tiny square, and the place was a winter icebox and a summer oven. Most mornings, Elizabeth woke me by firing her pistol at grackles that settled in the trees and in the yard and decorated her car and the house with droppings. The birds, seemingly undeterred, would resume their racket as soon as she gave up shooting and yelling and went inside. My duties, aside from cleaning the house, including driving Lisbeth and her neighbor, Annabelle Erbacher, to Hardee's out on Highway 65, now Julie's Bakery, for coffee each morning. Annabelle lived across the street, and our ritual involved Lisbeth leaning on the horn in Annabelle's driveway, cursing a blue streak about how Annabelle never had kids because her husband done give her the syphilis. Annabelle's husband was the town butcher. This daily rant would stop abruptly when Annabelle finally got into the car, at which point Lisbeth would switch to sweet gossip about the latest town scandals as if they were very best friends. When I spent time alone with Annabelle, she told me stories about how Mutt kept a trailer house in every county his constituents lived in so he could meet up with his county lady friends. The house at 1238 Front Street, where I also planted a garden when I was 19, was demolished shortly before Elizabeth's passing in 2003. And for those of you who are new to the area or who don't remember the Jones house or its neighbors, the Hendrix College Art Building now stands on that land, with my office and the photography studio occupying the same space as my old dog trot apartment. The same steep driveway still scrapes the bottom of student cars, and folks still come down to the back of Front Street apartments to gather pecans from the trees that were planted by the Jones family so long ago. A couple of years ago, I planted another garden on the same land, this time for Hendrix College, 30 years apart. It is funny, isn't it, how life continues to circle back on itself. As was already stated, the new garden is named the Stellar Joy Garden in honor of our colleagues Dr. Stella Chopik and Dr. Joyce Harden, both longtime campus sustainability champions who have since retired from Hendrix. And that project was supported by the Hendrix Odyssey program. To return to that same place, yet at a later time, for about a year after coming to Hendrix as faculty, I watched from my office window as an odd parade of characters carted valuable copper pipes and wire out of the old Erbacher house on Front Street, Annabelle having passed away years before. Curiosity piqued, and seeing an opportunity, I contacted my friend Cheryl Engelkest, the house's owner, and got her permission to salvage whatever architectural elements I fancied. One day after class, I decided to inspect the house to determine exactly what I might like to have. With a polite knock and a hearty hello, I entered the house. The place was a mess. Mattresses strewn about, rotting food, syringes, and scat from various critters. I gently roused one of the sleepers and informed him I'd be back with tools to remove the fireplace and the kitchen sink, warning them to clear out before I started making noise. On a Saturday morning, armed with a pry bar and a sledgehammer, I returned. My knocking and hellos went unanswered again, so I set to work on the sink, which was stubbornly built into the wall and required tearing out the sheetrock. The commotion roused a young man from his mattress, and as I turned around to address him and simultaneously shoo some raccoons out the door, he whipped out his penis, and he swung it around at me. I was hot, dirty, and generally irritable. So I put down my tools, pointed a harsh finger at him, and I said, this is where Templeton comes in, "Listen, young man, you put that thing back in your pants and get out of here. I'm taking this sink." This roused memories of my most interesting teaching experiences, and the way I handled that situation essentially sums up my teaching style. Stern, yet supportive. That sink is now in a bathroom at my house, and the Engelkests tore that house down at the city's request shortly thereafter. Guy Jones Jr.'s house next door came down as well, but not before I salvaged the Jones family's clawfoot tub, which is also in my home. A lot of things have happened in my life at and around 1238 Front Street. Much more recently, last summer, I was asked to speak at the memorial service of my undergraduate mentor, Roger Bowman. And the experience of writing his eulogy got me to thinking, again, about the moments in which we might actually impact students in ways that potentially change the course of their lives. To understand Roger Bowman's impact on my life, I need to tell you some of where I came from. As was mentioned in my bio, I have no pedigree. First-generation college student from Cleburne County, Pell Grant eligible, legally a ward of the court. In the small rural school in the Arkansas Hills I attended, grades K through 12, we had all of 200 students, a local chapter of the KKK, and I qualified for free lunches. Most of the teachers themselves graduated from that school and commuted to a college knowing they would return to teach and their children would also attend. My parents were dead by the time I was 4, neither having acquired a high school diploma. I was raised by my grandparents who didn't see much value in schooling, having skipped it entirely themselves. My grandpa, who wasn't my biological grandpa, couldn't read or write. We were poor, the kind of poor that makes you question why anyone would ever waste time on education when there's so much struggling day to day. This generational poverty still exists in Cleburne and many Arkansas counties. They were, and my remaining family is now, the people who believe that the educated are out of touch with real working class folks. And I don't disagree with that. The odds of my ending up in prison or succumbing to an overdose were much higher than the likelihood of my standing here today talking to you as a colleague. And this, too, is the reality of many first-generation college students in our state today. As for my entry into college, by all standards of college preparedness, I was set up to fail. No family support, emotional or financial, a woeful primary education, no role model, and a history of trauma that reads like a Harry Crews novel. But then came a stroke of luck, pure, dumb luck. I found myself at UCA, where ironically the art department didn't even have photography classes. It was a fluke, a critical convergence of time, place, and people. Therefore, of the people in this phase of my circumnavigation, one of them, Roger Bowman, a fellow Arkansan and a University of Iowa art graduate, turned out to be a pivotal figure in my life. I reckon he saw a bit of me in himself, recognizing a familiar struggle and a yearning to reconcile a past with a future. He didn't view my upbringing as a roadblock, nor did he think of it as an excuse for anything. He listened, he cared, and most importantly, he loaned me his camera. That gesture was like striking a match in the dark. It changed everything. He loaned me his camera and let me set up a makeshift darkroom in the attic of McAllister Hall, and then he just left me to it. That simple act opened a whole new world for me. I did well in school, found ways to make sense of my chaotic life, and poured it all into my photographic work. It became a way to honor the people and places that shaped me, especially Arkansas, and to give myself the confidence to find my own voice in the world. That voice became one that could both embrace and be critical of an experience, one that prioritized respect, and one that wasn't afraid of identity. When I got into graduate school, I had saved up enough money to buy my own camera. I returned the camera Mr. Bowman loaned me and went to Olson's Music and Camera store downtown, which is where Mike's place is now, and I bought the exact same camera, a Pentax K1000 for about $45. My daughter Clementine shoots with that camera now, and it's the model of camera I recommend my students purchase today. Not too many years later, I returned to UCA to start a photography program in the art department, and I designed a teaching darkroom in that same attic space where I experienced the magic of photography for the first time as a young, lost undergraduate student whose odds were stacked against her. By my reckoning, I'm not the generous teacher or the disciplined artist that Mr. Bowman was, but I've had a life filled with incredible experiences and opportunities, all thanks to that one moment, that one act of kindness. He created a ripple in my life that's still spreading, not reaching just my students, but my daughter too. And as you can see by my life, my stories, the experiences of my life aren't simply linear. Southern writer Robert Penn Warren noted this quality in his novel, All the King's Men, in describing life in general. The world is like an enormous spider web, and if you touch it, however lightly, at any point, the vibration ripples to the remotest perimeter. In my very best teaching moments, this is what I hope for, the ripple. So here I am, living proof of how one person, one moment can make a real difference, or maybe it's just a case of good old dumb luck. I can't say I ponder this potential impact with every student I meet, though the possibility is always there, however briefly. But if it happens once, it feels like time and energy well spent. Steve and Harry, thank you for sharing this day with me. Steve, I'm forever indebted to you and Dee for all the time you spent caring for Clementine. All the days you showed up and allowed her to walk home from Ida Burns Elementary with Rachel and Harry, all the meals your family shared with her, all the nights she spent in your home because I was here and I didn't have anyone else to help me. The happiest memories of Clem's childhood are those spent with Rachel in your home. Harry, thank you for sharing your big sister with us and for tolerating being outnumbered for so long. Harry Lance, hammered dulcimer extraordinaire, physics major. Rachel Lance, 2020 graduate in her 4th year of medical school. Thank you to my colleagues who have found value in my voice, beauty in my work, and who've appreciated my perspective. Hendrix has given me a kind of validation to the outside world I would not otherwise have. It's provided a lifestyle that allowed me to manage being a single mom and maintain a creative life in the place I wanted to be. Living life on this campus and with these colleagues, most importantly, has provided an example to my daughter that being educated gives you options, that diverse perspectives are critical, and that having a sense of place is a gift. I've met my best friends and my chosen family here. And lastly, I'd just like to say, the criteria of this award with these high standards would not exist without my colleagues. I really do think of this as an award for all of us. My fellow shapeshifters who have held this college up, who are the reason students come here and succeed, who have survived many iterations of administrations and have kept doing everything that's asked of them and so much more. So as far as I'm concerned, while I might have this medal around my neck in this moment, this honor is for you. Thank you.
Seems like a good time to sing the alma mater. One of you musicians give us a pitch. Or are you going to play it? Are you ready to play? Oh. It's worth waiting for.
Otherwise, I'll have lied to Andy when I told him that he was not responsible.
Following the benediction, we ask that you remain seated, which means you may be seated now. While the faculty and platform party recess. And once that recessional has completed, we invite you to join us in the lobby for refreshments. With hearts full of gratitude and minds inspired for our journeys ahead, may we go forth to live and cultivate lives of accomplishment, integrity, service, and joy.